Greetings, my dear children. Welcome to part 2 of When People Rebelled 1857 and After. In the first part, you studied that East India Company establishes its power in India, and this affected the lives of Indian kings, queens, landlords, peasants, tribals, soldiers in many ways. Many of them revolted against the policies enforced by the British. The Nawabs who ruled the land till then slowly lost all their power. The Nawabs and Rajas lost all authority and honor. There were British residents who were stationed in all courts to monitor the proceedings, thus undermining the authority of the Nawab. The Nawab's armies were disbanded, and the freedom from them of the rulers was reduced. The revenue collected by the Nawabs was taken away by the British, and their territories were also seized. You also learned that many ruling families tried to negotiate with the company in order to protect their interests. Rani Lakshmi Bai wanted the company to recognize her adopted son as the heir to the kingdom after the death of her husband. Nana Sahib was the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II. When Peshwa Bajirao II died, Nana Sahib pleaded with the British company to give him his father's pension. This request was declined. In 1801, a subsidiary alliance was imposed on Awadh. Governor General Dalhousie declared that the state was being misgoverned by Nawab Wajid Ali Shah and imposed British rule for proper administration. In 1856, Awadh was taken over by the British. It was one of the last territories to be annexed by the British. Bahadur Shah Zafar II was the last of the Mughal emperors. In 1849, Governor General Dalhousie announced that after the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, the family of the king would be shifted out of the Red Fort and given another place to live in Delhi. In 1857, after the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, Governor General Canning decided that his descendants would not be recognized as king but would be called only princes. Thus, slowly but decisively, the power of all Nawabs were taken away by the British. The peasants and the sepoys. In the countryside, peasants and zamindars resented the high taxes and the rigid methods of revenue collection. Many failed to pay back their loans to the moneylenders and gradually lost the land they had tilled for generations. You saw this in just about every taxation system, permanent settlement system, Riyotwari system, Mahalwari system, etc. The Indian sepoys in the employ of the company also had reasons for discontent. Discontent means they were upset. They were unhappy about their pay, allowances, and conditions of service. Some of the new rules, moreover, violated their religious sensibilities and belief. Did you know that in those days, many people in the country believed that if they crossed the sea, they would lose their religion and caste? So, when in 1824 the sepoys were told to go to Burma by sea route to fight for the company, they refused to follow orders, though they agreed to go by the land route. They were severely punished And since the issue did not die down in 1856, the company passed a new law which stated that every new person who took up employment in the company's army had to agree to serve overseas if required. Sepoys also reacted to what was happening in the countryside. Many of them were peasants and had families living in the villages. So the anger of the peasants quickly spread among sepoys. Responses to reforms. The British believed that the Indian society had to be reformed. Laws were passed to stop the practice of sati and to encourage the remarriage of widows. English language education was actively promoted. After 1830, the company allowed Christian missionaries to function freely in its domain and even own land and property. In 1850, a new law was passed to make conversion to Christianity easier. This law allowed an Indian who had converted to Christianity to inherit the property of his ancestors. Many Indians began to feel that the British were destroying their religion, their social customs, and their traditional way of life. There were, of course, other Indians who wanted to change existing social practices. You will read about these reforms and reformers in chapter 7. Through the eyes of the people, to get a glimpse of what the people were thinking those days about the British rule, study sources 1 and 2. Source 1. The list of 84 rulers. Given here are excerpts from the book Majha Pravas, written by Vishnu Bhatt Godse, a Brahman from a village in Maharashtra. He and his uncle had set out to attend a yajna being organized in Mathura. Vishnu Bhatt writes that they met some sepoys on the way who told them that they should not proceed on the journey because a massive upheaval was going to break out in 3 days. The sepoys said the English were determined to wipe out the religions of the Hindus and Muslims. They had made a list of 84 rulers and announced these in a gathering of all big kings and princes in Calcutta. They said that the kings refused to accept these rules and warned the British of dire consequences and massive upheavals if these are implemented. That the kings all returned to their capitals in great anger, and all the big people began making plans. A date was fixed for the war of religion, and the sacred plan had been circulated from the cantonment in Meerut by letters sent to different cantonments. There was soon excitement in every regiment. Another account we have from those days are the memoirs of Subedar Sitaram Pandey. Sitaram Pandey was recruited in 1812 as a sepoy in the Bengal Native Army. He served the English for 48 years and retired in 1860. He helped British to suppress the rebellion through his own son, though his own son was a rebel and was killed by the British in front of his eyes. On retirement, he was persuaded by his commanding officers, Norgate, to write his memoirs. He completed the writing in 1861 in Awadh, and Norgate translated it into English and had it published under the title From Sepoy to Subedar. Here is an excerpt from what Sitaram Pandey wrote. It is my humble opinion that This seizing of oath filled the minds of the sepoys with distrust and led them to plot against the government. Agents of the Nawab of Awadh and also of the King of Delhi were sent all over India to discover the temper of the army. They worked upon the feelings of sepoys, telling them how treacherously the foreigners had behaved towards their king. They invented 10,000 lies and promises to persuade the soldiers to mutiny and turn against their masters, the English, with the object of restoring the Emperor of Delhi to the throne. They maintained that this was wholly within the army's power if the soldiers would only act together and do as they were advised.